Airlines in the world today. It suffered two fatal disasters in 1 year and losses since 2011 amounting to over $1 billion. To stop the bleeding, the company was delisted from the stock exchange and a German turnaround specialist brought in. But after a year, he resigned. Now the job to get this behemoth off the ground has fallen onto the lap of an Irishman, Bellew.
It's also given people a bit of guidance and a bit of coaching about that it's okay to be aggressive, rude, and even sometimes a bit nasty.
Can he succeed where others have failed? Get Malaysia Airlines soaring again. It's the national flag carrier of Malaysia. Until recently, it was an airline recognized as one of the world's best. But competition from low-cost carriers and the Middle Eastern airlines, on top of the looming costs, sent Malaysia Airlines into a tailspin. Since 2011, losses have accumulated to over $1 billion. Then, disaster struck. In 2014, MH370 disappeared over the Indian Ocean and remains missing. 4 months later, MH17 was shot down over Ukraine. The two disasters led the parent company, Malaysian Sovereign Wealth Fund, Khazanah, to take the airline off the stock market in 2014. A recovery plan was put in place.
For the first time, a foreigner was brought in to lead the airline, German aviation veteran Christoph Müller. But his 3-year contract ended prematurely when he announced his resignation after a year. So the search began for the new CEO, but that didn't take long, as the chief operating officer then was seen to be the best man for the job. Enter Bellew.
The Irishman took over as CEO on 1st July 2016. He was Director of Flight Operations of Irish budget carrier Ryanair before his posting in Malaysia. This is his first assignment outside Europe.
You know, Peter, yours has been one of the fastest and probably the most unexpected promotions in aviation. What was your first thought when you heard that Christoph Müller had tendered his resignation?
Oh, damn it! And why couldn't he just hang on for a bit longer? That was my because he's a friend and he's a good colleague and we're working really hard. We're working so closely together. So I just felt if he even could have hung on for those 6 or 9 months, we would have got a bit more done.
Did you expect to be presented with a top?
No, I didn't. No, I never
Really?
did. No, I didn't. No. I think as time went on, over the few months, towards the end, I thought, hey, why not? Because the Khazanah had been spending enough time within the organisation to see that I probably was steadying the ship and that we were just cracking on with things and things were happening at the same pace.
Did it bother you during the search that there were, people from certain quarters saying that they wanted a Malay CEO to represent Malaysia Airlines?
No, I can completely understand that. If there was a Malaysian guy running, Ryanair or running Aer Lingus, the Irish Airlines, there would be a load of noise around that. I completely get it. There'll always be people who won't be happy because of Matt Sally running Malaysia Airlines. But, I just get over it.
Who was the first person you spoke to when you were told that this job would be yours?
My wife. And
what was the reaction?
Well, I had to check the phone line was still connected because she went very quiet at the other end. My wife was in shock. I think she's still in shock.
You have taken on what is arguably the toughest job in aviation today. How do you sleep at night?
I sleep fine, probably because I work such a long day. I'm so exhausted by the time I get back home. But no, I sleep fine. I worked in a company called Ryanair for the last 10 years, and we had over 350 aircraft spread across 24 countries. So you get used to it. It is a 24/7 business. There is no rest, 365 days of the year. You just have to get used to that even when you go to the bathroom, you have to bring your phone with you. So it doesn't change. You
But
get
it
used
is
to
a
it.
vastly different experience being director of flight operations of a profitable budget airline in Ireland to the chief executive officer today of what some people would call technically bankrupt full-service airline in Malaysia.
It is, but the big difference, I think, and the advantage I've got in a way is the depth of people and the experience in Malaysia Airlines is quite incredible. We have 60, 70 senior managers in the airline. A lot of them are there up to 35 years, and there's a depth of talent within Malaysia Airlines that we wouldn't have had actually in Ryanair, which is just over 20 years old, really.
Why take on this hot potato when you could have been very comfortable remaining as chief operating officer?
I guess the challenge is there. So you've put it well. It is a historic thing we're trying to do. We will fix it. We will pull off this turnaround. It will be the greatest turnaround in the history of aviation. I have no doubt about it. No airline has ever been through what Malaysia Airlines has been through. No organisation, I think, has been through the very dramatic events that have happened, both financially and otherwise, that have happened in the organisation. So why not? Why not be part of that, and why not try and lead the charge of the group of people that's there in this historic event?
What would you say is your immediate priority in executing this recovery plan?
I think we need to become very visible as a company. I think we've been a little bit shy about promoting ourselves. You have rarely seen, up until a few weeks ago, advertising for Malaysia Airlines. You've seen very little digitally or in the newspapers. You've seen very little publicly even about us commenting about our business and trying to promote it. I think that's the number one priority.
Are we talking about a rebranding exercise here?
No, I don't think it requires a rebranding right now. The wow and the kite and everything, I actually quite like it. I'm sentimental about it. When I was very small, I used to collect stamps. One day I had this stamp with Malaysia on it on a plane, and I said, look, where's this? We looked through and I saw this country, Malaysia, and I said to my mom in the kitchen, I said, look, do you think I'll ever go to Malaysia? Do you think I'll ever be there? And she said, no, son, don't be stupid. That will never happen. So to me, the heritage of the brand that's there, I don't believe we will be branded.
So let's talk about some numbers now. What's your load factor?
We're running just about 68% at the moment. Break even is probably about 73, 74%. I believe over the next 18 months, we can have a really good start at getting up to 80%.
So as part of the strategy, competing on price?
You have to compete on price. You have to beat all things to all people on an aircraft. We have on a 737, we have 160 seats. There's nothing wrong with us selling 15 seats at a very low fare for people who book 6 months in advance.
So does that also justify the reason for your plans to move some of your flights to KLIA2, which is traditionally seen as a budget airport?
Yeah. We have a very anti-competitive situation at the moment within Kuala Lumpur at the airport. The older terminal in KLIA2 is $8 American 25 cents more expensive to travel from than the terminal, the brand new terminal KLIA2. So if we want to start a new international flight, really we're talking almost $1,500 American more for our plane just to operate through that terminal. That's just completely nuts, and that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world because it's very unfair.
Unfair against you?
Not just against us. There's 50 other airlines operating at Kuala Lumpur Airport. There's one company has a massive cost advantage over everybody else.
And that's
in a terminal that's brand new. So that's just simply not fair. It's not competitive.
You know what's amazing to me is to see how the tables have turned. When AirAsia started off in 2001, they were complaining how the field wasn't level. It was against them, and Malaysia Airlines was the favourite child. And now you're turning around to say that, now the odds are stacked up against you.
Yes, and it can't be our place to be shy and to be retiring and to be sitting in our box waiting for people to trample all over us. As a company, we're going to have to bust out of where we're at and be aggressive in our stance.
How do you do that?
Well, for many years we said nothing about this disparity in charges. So I think the first day I was on the job, it was the first issue I raised. And it is the biggest issue that the company will face probably on a cost basis or an operation basis over the next few years. We can't sit back and be the punch bag for anybody else. As a company, and our ethos is going to have to be, we're going to have to come out fighting, and we're going to have to defend our turf, and we're going to have to be far more aggressive in our commercial strategy over the next few years.
And what's curious to me is that you're owned by a government-linked company, Khazanah, which should have enough muscle to get their way through with Malaysia Airports, which is also a government-linked company. So why isn't that happening?
There's an independent commission called the Malaysian Aviation Commission, MAVCOM, and they are the group that studied the overall charges issue, and they will deal with that. And ultimately, it will be a government decision along with MAVCOM. And I think Khazanah is very careful not to be seen to try and orchestrate events.
What do you believe is going to be really the key to long-term sustainable profitability for the company?
It's attention to detail on all areas, but particularly on the cost side. The revenue and airlines can ebb and flow, but costs are a thing you can control. And that's not about cutting service, that's often about adding better service and better service levels. But it's the boring stuff. It's like, how much do we pay the guy who puts the fuel on the aircraft and the service charge? How much do we pay Petronas or Shell to do that? It's about, if you're buying nasi lemak in Shanghai, what do you pay for it there? It's about the nuts and screws that go on the baggage trucks. Every line of every cost, that's going to be the essence of it. And it's putting that discipline in the organisation that it doesn't slip away. So procurement is incredibly important. The Boeing aircraft that we just bought last week, we bought them for 40% less than the last time, just a few years ago, that Malaysia Airlines did. And all of our costs at all the airports where we pay handling agents to check people in and everything, a lot of those are going down 35-40% at the moment. Nobody ever asked for a discount before. So, I'm Irish, so we even if we're buying a pint of milk and some biscuits, we're normally looking to get the money rounded down.
After the break, Peter Bellew on what he had to deal with when he first joined the company.
Malaysia Airlines, the culture had been very much, we know everything, we do everything, we can do it all ourselves, we don't need any help from anybody.
Coming up on the next stage of Business First, news from Singapore's factory floors. A look at how companies fared after last month's unexpected contraction. Plus, we hear from Sunil Kaushal of Standard Chartered Bank on Asia's rising interest in Africa at a time when economies here deal with the blow of easing global growth.
Unwind and discover at Bintan Resorts.
In this series, I'll be taking a journey from Borneo to Sumatra, Vietnam, Cambodia, and beyond. I want to find out how the past still shapes the present, how modern nations emerge from the maritime world of our ancestors, and look into the future of the place we call home. Exclusively on ChannelNewsAsia.
Body and Soul returns for its 4th season.
And in this new season, find out all about how to prevent and treat your health concerns ranging from headaches and vertigo to sweaty palms and constipation.
And give useful health tips in our Health Takeaways segment. Join me,
Daniel Martin,
and our resident doctor, Professor Carolyn Lam,
along with a whole list of experts and celebrity guests,
as we help you demystify the health problems plaguing you. Body and Soul, Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. on Channel 5.
Synergizing Asia's top movers and shakers.
We want to position Singapore as a strategic node in the global marketplace because we are where the action is in Asia.
Create a hotbed of new ideas.
The whole idea is to bring them together to share ideas, listen to the experience of the other successful entrepreneurs.
Learn how ideas can bloom into the next big thing on Entrepreneur Connect, Friday at 8:30 p.m.
This program is brought to you by SingX and sponsored by Credit Suisse.
Malaysia Airlines has gone through turbulence that no other airline in the industry has ever experienced. Billion-dollar losses and 2 fatal disasters 4 months apart. The company has had 4 CEOs in the last 7 years. Newly appointed CEO Peter Bellew has the task of executing a recovery plan to get the airline back in the black and onto the stock market by 2019. It's a mammoth task, and one that he's taking in his stride.
Yeah, the food's particularly good here.
I hear that you take walks through the terminal every weekday at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm trying to understand what the customers are facing. So you're trying to see, are the delays too high? Are we checking in people quickly enough? Is there any issue?
What's the leadership style that works best for this culture, for this organization?
I think you've got to listen to people, right? I know traditionally in some parts of the world people are very detached from their workforce. They're the big boss. You know, I think you have to be approachable. I think you have to you have to listen to people, but you also have to be tough, which I have been in a number of areas and can lose my temper quite badly, but you have to control that as well. You know.
So when have you been tough?
Sometimes if people do stuff, they've made a mistake, but they don't tell me straight away or own up to it. If people are trying to hide stuff or bury it, I'll get very annoyed about that.
My interview with Peter Bellew took place at the Malaysia Airlines Academy, where he was treated like a celebrity, and he was happy to oblige. That's because for him, connecting with people is key to the transformation of the company.
In terms of success, we're going to have tenacity. We're going to have to be a lot more hard work, and a little bit of a sense of humour as well. So we're trying to just chill out a bit, and we're going to make some mistakes. To say it's okay to put your hand up if you've screwed up something, if you've made a mistake, even if it's terrible. It's okay to say it, because we just clear it up and move on to the next thing. That's very important, because I think the culture here is to find excuses and try and keep it quiet.
Culture is something that takes sometimes generations to change. What makes you think that you'll be able to do that?
I don't think I'll ever change the culture of the country or Malaysia. I think it's giving people some ground rules that makes it easier for them to follow best practice. It's also giving people a bit of guidance and a bit of coaching about that it's okay to be aggressive, rude, and even sometimes a bit nasty with the supplier to try and get the deal you need to get, because that's the way life works with some of the international suppliers we deal with.
Your predecessor, Christoph Müller, did talk about how when he first arrived, he found people sleeping in the hangar. So how do you plan to overcome this issue of productivity?
I haven't found anybody sleeping, and I don't know if Christoph really did either. But I think it's about the pace that you set, and it comes from the top down. So people are walking faster, meetings are happening quicker. You have to just set the tone. Our engineering and maintenance department was probably the area that had fallen the most behind within the company. Now they're about 6 to 9 months ahead. Malaysia Airlines, the culture had been very much, we know everything, we do everything, we can do it all ourselves, we don't need any help from anybody. A good example is this big maintenance check on the Airbus A380. We have a team have moved in to our hangar of 14 people from Airbus. Now they're there all the time. And there's an exchange of information and culture and learning that's happening with Boeing, with Airbus, with Pratt & Whitney, with General Electric, CFM. That's really fun. And now they're starting to see, wow, like we can be a much better organisation if we take on board all that learning.
How long did that check on the A380 take, recently as compared to the past?
It took 50 days, and in the past, some of those things could have taken up to 6 months.
Do you have a free hand in running the company, particularly in view of the fact that you are owned by Khazanah, and any decision you make has political implications?
I actually don't want a free hand. Khazanah is one of the most successful sovereign wealth funds that's in history, right? From very little money, they've made fantastic investments. They've got brilliant people working in there, so why would I be looking for the free hand, as they call it?
One of your tasks is to get the succession plan going, to get a successor ready when you leave. Do you necessarily have to choose someone from a particular race to this position?
No, I haven't been given any matter like that. There's 6 or 7 top leaders within the company at the moment. Some of them are Malays, some of them are Chinese, and some of them are, from the Indian community here. So we have people spread right throughout the organisation as leaders all over the place. So no, that hasn't been any kind of a prerequisite.
After the break, Peter Bellew talks about being a kampong boy.
I come from the smallest little village you can imagine in Ireland. They would say it's a one-horse town where the horse was dead.
They heard the challenge.
It's all automation, we're moving towards that. So how do we reskill our staff?
And have raised questions.
What we need is politics that unites and not politics that divides. How can we work across political divides?
In the case of an attack or something that threatens to tear our social fabric, how do we foster a population that can rise to the challenge?
Join our guests in a special forum with Minister Ong Ye Kung to talk about race, politics and economy. Monday, 29th August, live at 8 p.m. on ChannelNewsAsia, with an encore at 9:30 p.m. on 5.
Next on First Look Asia, our city warming up to Pep Guardiola. Campbell's Reds bounce back from their Bournemouth defeat. We'll chat about the EPL and much more on Talking Sports. Now count your lucky stars for 3 square meals every day. Climate change is making it harder to produce enough food to feed the world's population. We'll discuss food security and On the Table. All that plus world news on First Look Asia Friday.
Travel between North America and Asia has just gotten a whole lot easier. Connect to Taipei for the fastest routes between major cities on both sides of the Pacific. EVA Air, a Star Alliance member.
Good food comes from great recipes. And great recipes often come from the most unusual chefs. It's time to step into the kitchen with Jane Yo. There's no taste like home.
Everyone, bon appetit. I hope you enjoy your dinner.
Power Recipes 2, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Only on AOK.
This Saturday, with disruption singled out as Singapore's defining challenge, how is the logistics industry embracing technology to overcome it?
They are able to now provide track and trace of the device as well as the whole entire chain of custody.
And we look at how to maximize the value of a company's intellectual property. Plus, why investors are caring about the sharing space. Money Mind, Saturday, 10:30 p.m.
Moneymind is brought to you by Subaru.
Tell me a little bit about how you grew up. What did your parents do?
Well, what they would call in Malaysia, I'm a real kampong boy. I come from the smallest little village you can imagine in Ireland. They would say it's a one-horse town where the horse was dead. There was one tiny school with 2 rooms in it. So from when you were 4 till you were 9, you stayed in one room with all the other 10 or 12 kids. In the other room you went, and then after you graduated from the junior school, you went to a high school in a big city, which was only a town of 10,000 people. And my mum actually was the first dietitian in Ireland. And my dad worked in the oil business. He worked for Shell for many years. Sadly, they died quite young. My dad died the day before I started college, and my mum just 18 months after. I had a younger daughter, I had a younger sister, so I ended up treating like a daughter, I guess, for a number of years. So, but I had a wonderful childhood. I was very lucky. My parents did everything they could to provide for us.
What's the ambition then?
I actually, quite maybe early when I was in college, decided I wanted to get into the travel business. The airlines particularly wasn't the first thing. It was more on the travel agency tour operating side I was really interested in.
So you've got 4 children?
I've got 4 kids, yeah. The eldest guy, he took a gap year, so he's starting college, and I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and I've got twins, a boy and a girl. They're 13. So a big change for them, a great transition.
How do you de-stress? How many hours do you spend at work?
I'm normally at work around 7:15. Normally, it can often go on till 8, 9 o'clock at night. The weekends I'm on call, but I might work the odd Saturday, but I don't tend to work all the time. I play the guitar quite badly. I sing very enthusiastically.
Should we have a song and dance?
Well, I didn't bring a guitar this morning, but I enjoy that, and sometimes the weekends and at parties, and occasionally you'll see me popping up in blues bars and stuff doing that. So that's good fun.
So do you think that the talent pool is enough for you to work on, to get someone that's good enough to replace?
There's brilliant people working with me at the moment, and there's definitely any number of them, I'm sure in a couple of years, will be far better than me at running Malaysia Airlines. I think that what I can do is I can show people best practice. I can introduce the people here to great people internationally, in the vendors, the people in Boeing and Airbus that they've never met before. We can get training done for people that they haven't been able to do in the past. I'm looking forward to coming back over the next few years, looking up with seats in the sky, hopefully have my grandchildren bouncing on my knee, and Malaysia Airlines with giant planes flying all over the world, and we'd be able to say, look, I was part of the team that made this a success. But there's great Malaysian people that can run this business.
So here's the million-dollar question. Will you stay till the end of your contract?
Yes, that's the plan. I plan to stay to the end of the contract to get the company back in the stock exchange. It's not just a normal business, this. There's a little bit of a mad vocation there for me, that we have to fix this thing. And if we fix this thing, and we will do, I think it's going to be a great boost to other businesses in the country to see, look, you can take something that's really, really quite hurt and scared and sad, and you can take it and you can make it into something great again.
You really believe that?
I do, yeah. I believe that down to my bone marrow, and I think that's the strength that will give me, and I think almost all of our employees believe that now as well. They can see that it's not just about fixing the punctuality in an airline or making the prices better. It's about making something great, making something historic.